Welcome back, everybody. This is Parker Hurley. This is the 21st day. I think yesterday I said it was the 21st day. It was actually the 20th day with the Green Bay Packers. 21st day out of 32 NFL teams. So today is the Pittsburgh Steelers. I go through 5 questions I wrote back in May. Going to answer those questions now that the season's over. And then we're going to go through the roster. Going to come up with 5 more questions for the Steelers offseason ahead. So should be a really interesting one. Like I said, we're on to the 20th team or 21st team now. So check out the 20 teams we did beforehand. We have the Panthers and Packers as the 2 playoff teams. This is the 3rd playoff team. We have all the non-playoff teams already covered where we answer all of their offseason questions and go through their needs. So let's get straight to it. The first question that I had, obviously, like I said, this was back in May. I said, what are the Steelers going to do at quarterback? They went through the draft without seriously addressing it other than Will Howard in the 6th round. It seems like all signs are pointing to Aaron Rodgers, but Rodgers missing all of this offseason time is probably going to affect the ceiling that the Steelers have. That was pretty clearly right. Rodgers was okay. It's just, like I said, he missed all that offseason time. They didn't develop any chemistry with any of the young receivers. By the end of the season, he wanted guys like Adam Thielen and Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who simply just didn't have the explosiveness enough. But the guys like Calvin Austin and Roman Wilson, who were more explosive, were in the doghouse of Aaron Rodgers because he waited until like July to sign with the team. So it obviously didn't work out for them. I feel like anyone who knew anything about the Steelers or who knew anything about Aaron Rodgers, this was by far the most likely scenario. When he signed with them, there was almost no other scenario than them winning 9 or 10 games and losing in the first round. And they did it. So they continually sign up for this. And we're going to get into the interesting question is that, and you can listen to my podcast beforehand, is that I just couldn't believe they didn't take a first-round quarterback last year. And the only real thought is that Mike Tomlin knew it was his last season. He got all these aging veterans. He got Aaron Rodgers. Didn't really care about the succession plan because he thought, I'm going to go out on top, or I'm going to go out winning a couple big playoff games with Aaron Rodgers. Everyone's going to think I'm a superstar, and then I'm going to retire. And it just didn't work out for him. It worked out the way everyone else expected, but not them. And now they have no plan at quarterback, and they just passed on Tyler Shuck and Jackson Dart, who are really exciting starters. What a fascinating team. And they're going to, if they pass on a quarterback this year, I keep saying, at some point, you got to stop waiting for the right person to come around. Like the guy, the hometown kid from Pitt, who is a superstar quarterback, that's such a fun story. They're sitting around waiting for it's going to be some magical story and it's going to be the perfect fit and he's going to drop to pick 21, even though he's the top prospect in the whole league. It's what are you waiting for? They need to take, if I was the Steelers, I would draft a quarterback every single year, likely high. If I was them, I would take, Simpson, Nussmeier, or Drew Aller from Penn State. Pretty high. Because no one wanted Tyler Shuck last year, and now the Steelers would trade anything for Tyler Shuck, but they can't. So my second question is, how does Caleb Johnson impact Jaylen Warren? He does not at all, because Caleb Johnson was a miss. What a bad pick by them. They didn't need a running back that bad. And then so they reached for the guy, and then he doesn't even turn out to be nearly as good of a prospect as they thought he was going to be. Huge disappointment. It all seems to be mental. The physical aspects seem to be fine there. But what turned out to happen is Kenneth Gainwell stepped into. They wanted that 2-man rotation because they simply think Jaylen Warren is too small to handle a serious workload. So they wanted a 220-pound plus running back to handle that workload. They didn't get that in Caleb Johnson, so it was Kenneth Gainwell. And the issue from that is that Gainwell is more of the pass-catching speed back, but that was supposed to be Warren's role. They needed Caleb Johnson to be the power back in between the tackles, taking the brunt of the carries. That ended up having to be Warren, so he slid into a role that he wasn't necessarily comfortable with, and then it put Gainwell in that pass-catching role. So I almost expected 220 carries from Johnson and 120 from Warren, and it ended up being 220 from Warren and 120 from Gainwell. And then Gainwell had 20 more catches than Warren. I would have expected Warren to have 20 more catches than Johnson. So essentially they flipped their roles, and it didn't go well for the running back room. Other than Kenneth Gainwell had a great season, and it'll be interesting to see what he's going to do now that he's a free agent, because in most of his other stops, he wasn't that productive. And a lot of his production was just Aaron Rodgers taking the check down and him making it work. He did have that big catch against the Detroit Lions too. Who starts in the slot on offense is my third question. This was before they traded George Pickens. I was saying that Calvin Austin should be the leader ahead of Roman Wilson, and I thought that Robert Woods was still behind Calvin Austin. Turned out to be true even after they traded George Pickens, that Calvin Austin stepped into the number 2 role. Didn't have nearly as good of a season. Like I said, Aaron Rodgers likes to trust guys, and he didn't have nearly enough time with Calvin Austin. They could never get on the same page. So obviously didn't work out for them. And Valdez-Scantling and Thielen ended up getting snaps over him by the end of the season, mostly just because that's what Rodgers wanted, even though Austin was clearly the more talented football player. So he did finish second in the team amongst receivers in catches, yards, targets, everything like that. But like I said, there wasn't much competition due to the guys that actually competed with him. Thielen and Valdez-Scantling came in like after week 11. So he was their number 2, but the real answer to who their slot was on offense was Pat Freiermuth, and then Washington and Jonnu Smith were their 2 tight ends, and then Austin and Metcalf were their outsides. Freiermuth was their slot. So who's the slot on defense? They have Beanie Bishop, they have Brandon Eccles, they have Dante Kent, they have Sebastian Castro. And then they traded Minkah Fitzpatrick after I wrote this for Jalen Ramsey. Ramsey started the year in the slot, but then they eventually moved him to safety, and it ended up being probably a smarter decision for them. Ramsey was pretty good in terms of being able to tackle, being able to diagnose, being able to run downfield, all of those things. He was awful in man coverage, and he simply cannot play cornerback ever again. He'll have to play safety the rest of his career, whether that be for the Steelers or not. So they figured that out, and then Eccles ended up stepping up and playing pretty well in the slot. So they have a slot starter next year in Brandon Eccles. So that's good. The only big issue is that Darius Slay was awful on the outside. But then James Pierce ended up playing well, but he's a free agent now. So is the offensive line ready to step up was my 5th question. The answer is I would say yes, especially Troy Fatanu was excellent this year. Zach Frazier was pretty excellent as well. And then Mason McCormick was fine at right guard. They obviously, Broderick Jones missed a lot of time at left tackle, was up and down. And now that he missed time, it's going to be really interesting to see what they do with his 5th-year option. But Dylan Cook was satisfactory at left tackle as well, so they could run it back with Dylan Cook and slide Broderick Jones in the left guard because Isaac Seumalo is going to be a free agent. He's over 30 years old. They have a new offensive line coach. He was banged up last season. I don't see them bringing Seumalo back, but those 3 on the right side from center to right tackle were excellent, and their left tackle was satisfactory enough. And when Seumalo was in there, they were completely fine at left guard. So no real issues with their offensive line. For maybe the first time in 4 years, the Steelers' offensive line wasn't a big weakness of theirs. So moving on to their roster, like I said, at quarterback, they have Mason Rudolph and Will Howard signed. What an interesting answer Mike McCarthy gave, where he just went out of his way to praise Will Howard and then said, oh, yeah, by the way, Mason Rudolph is on the team too, kind of like him too. Like, Will Howard, just so we're all clear, he's a 6th-round pick in what was considered a bad quarterback class. He went right before Kyle McCord, who got cut and is on his 2nd NFL team. He went after Shedeur Sanders, who made the Pro Bowl, so maybe the Steelers have a Pro Bowl quarterback here. But, he went after Dylan Gabriel. You know what we're saying here? I get there's excitement for Will Howard, but the Steelers going into this season with Will Howard would be worse than the Saints going into last season with Spencer Rattler. And they drafted Tyler Shuck. So you need to do something more than this. And that's what I'm saying is that I don't care if Tyler Simpson doesn't look appealing to some people. At least he can compete with Will Howard. That's not a hard bar. He could probably easily beat him. So I don't see, I think that's what they have to do. They may just bring back Aaron Rodgers, and then the spin that the Steelers fans or people are putting it is that McCarthy and Rodgers know each other. McCarthy will coach Will Howard. Rodgers will put his arm around Will Howard. And it'll just be, 9-8 for the rest of their entire careers. And they'll just lose in the playoffs every year, first round, and Mike McCarthy will go 0-7, and he'll get fired after 7 years, or he'll retire after 7 years. Just seems like that's what they want to do, so they should just continue to take shots at quarterback, but they seem to want to run it back. Like I said, Rodgers wasn't nearly good enough. We know what Mason Rudolph is, and Will Howard was a 6th-round pick, so why not throw a 3rd-round pick at somebody this year and have the 3rd-round pick compete with the 6th-round pick and let the cream rise to the top? I would much rather see that than see Aaron Rodgers back with the Steelers. But it seems like they're going to run it back with Aaron Rodgers, which seems crazy. But like I said, they are not interested in winning Super Bowls. They like to win 9. That's where their goal is. So Jalen Warren is back and signed. Caleb Johnson is back and signed. And then Kenneth Gainwell is a free agent. But what are they going to do? Because Johnson was a 3rd-round pick. He needs to either start seeing the field, or they need to simply, call him a bust at this point. So it's going to be really interesting. That's one of the biggest questions of the offseason is, what is this new coaching staff, new offensive line coach, new offensive coordinator? What do they think of Caleb Johnson? And do they see, because if Aaron Rodgers comes back, it's almost a given that Kenneth Gainwell is going to come back, because Aaron Rodgers hates all the other receivers. So why would he has to trust somebody, and he only trusts Kenneth Gainwell. But then I think that if Aaron Rodgers doesn't come back, like, what's the point of bringing Kenneth Gainwell back, to catch 3rd down passes again, when, like I said, that was Jalen Warren's responsibility anyways. You need to bring in a 220-pound back who can pound it between the tackles, that can compete with Caleb Johnson, not someone that can compete with Jalen Warren. So I don't understand why they would do it, but they probably will. DK Metcalf, they obviously are bringing him back after trading for him. Roman Wilson, like I said, I think him more than Austin he's probably a bust. He just doesn't seem like he makes plays. He doesn't get it. Calvin Austin, when they throw him the ball in the area to where he can actually catch it, he seems like he actually makes plays and he catches the football, and he had 500 yards with Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. It was just, like I said, Rodgers will ice players out. So Calvin Austin was fine. Roman Wilson was not. But Calvin Austin is going to be a free agent, and Roman Wilson is going to be here. And I don't know if they're going to be – they need wide receiver in the worst way. So that is obviously their biggest need, because beyond Roman Wilson, they have really nothing. And, who are they going to bring back? Are they really going to bring back Valdez-Scantling? Can't you do like a lot better than that? At tight end, they need to cut Jonnu Smith, whether Rodgers is there or not. The thing with Smith is that he's not a great blocker. He dropped a lot of passes. He wasn't on the same page with Rodgers. Maybe a team will like him as a pass catcher and you can trade him off, but he was a disaster for the Steelers. And then, like I said, Freiermuth, I know there's a new offensive coordinator and he won't use tight ends like slots anymore, but I could see them continuing to use Freiermuth as a pass catcher because they don't have any other guys and they're going to need more players. So they'll bring back Freiermuth, and Darnell Washington they really need to extend. He became their best tight end by far by the end of the season. So they'll extend Darnell Washington, bring back Pat Freiermuth, cut Jonnu Smith, and then they're going to need some wide receivers. Like I said, they can't extend Broderick Jones. The question to me now is that, do they give up on him and push him into left guard, or do they let him fight one more season? If they give up on him, I know Dylan Cook should be back, but wouldn't you like draft somebody and then he competes with Dylan Cook? But then it's like, do you have needs at receiver, potentially cornerback, some serious quarterback? Obviously, you're going to have to invest resources in that. So wouldn't you want to just give Braxton Jones or Broderick Jones one more year at left tackle, and just, if he blows up and has a great year and you have to overpay for him because of that, that's just a tax that you have to pay. But he's so young, I would probably give him one more year. And then Fatanu's at right tackle, Mason McCormick at right guard, Zach Frazier. They need a left guard scenario. So that's why, do they slide someone in at left guard? Is it, Anderson at left guard? Do they bring in a free agent veteran? Do they draft someone in on day 3? They're going to need to do something at left guard, but I think that's the move, is that they give Jones one more shot and try and do something at left guard rather than bring in competition at left tackle and move Jones into left guard. But it's a question. I think defensively, they need to trade TJ Watt. I know he may not want it to happen, and I know Art Rooney doesn't want it to happen, and Mike McCarthy, so I'm talking into dead air. But Nick Herbig was the best pass rusher last year. Alex Highsmith was their second best pass rusher, and then TJ Watt played the most. They really need Alex Highsmith and Nick Herbig to play more. I know Herbig had a high win rate on a lower amount of snaps, but he needs to play more because they're going to need to extend him this offseason, and he's probably going to be turning down the offers that they give him because he's going to hit free agency and make like $100 million based on the way he's playing right now on his limited sample size. And the Steelers need to know, if they want to give him $100 million, he needs to play full-time snaps for him. So they're going to need to cut TJ Watt, or not cut him. They need to trade him. And really, even if you get like a 3rd round pick, like I said, when you have needs at receiver, quarterback, cornerback, you have significant areas of needs. You can't just be hoarding edge rushers here. And Jack Sawyer had a pretty good year as a rookie. So you could go into next year easily with Highsmith, Herbig, Jack Sawyer, and then somebody else, and you still have one of the best edge rusher groups in the NFL. To keep TJ Watt would be insane at this point, especially where the age of their roster is and where like they have to start turning the roster and getting younger in some areas. An easy way to do that is turn your 30-something edge rusher into a draft pick and save a lot of money and then get younger at other positions, including quarterback, by far the most important position. They need to trade TJ Watt. It would be devastating if they didn't. Cameron Hayward, it's up to him whether he wants to retire or not. He was an all-pro last year, one of the best players in the NFL. The issue is that he's the best player on the Steelers, and he's a 37-year-old interior defensive lineman, and that can't be the best player on any team competing for playoff wins. It's great that they have him, and it's great that he's very talented. He hasn't posted much since Mike McCarthy got hired. I saw that on his podcast, he kind of just ran through it and didn't talk about like how it feels for him to be excited to play for McCarthy, everything like that. So I think he's weighing his options. He has a new defensive line coach coming in. I could see him retiring this offseason, especially they have Harmon, who had a really good season. They have Benton, who was up and down. I didn't think Y.A. Black was very good, but if Hayward leaves, they have a serious need on the defensive line. It's just like, this isn't like TJ Watt, where I think they need to trade TJ Watt. They should want Hayward to come back. I just don't know if he's going to. And they're not like desperate at defensive line if he doesn't, but Patrick Queen, they could save $14 million by cutting him. He's average. He's not worth the $17 million. I know that they probably like his veteran capabilities and he's fast. He misses so many plays. He's close on so many plays, doesn't get to them. He's not nearly worth $17 million. I would cut him. I don't think the Steelers are going to. Peyton Wilson, they had to bench him for Malik Harrison and for even when Harrison was hurt, they were putting in Cole Holcomb on at times because Peyton Wilson just simply doesn't get it between the ears, especially when it comes to defending the run. Teams will just run straight at him, especially early in the season. That's why they had so many issues defending the run. Any run that went to the second level was getting now anything that could get to 4 yards was getting to 10 yards because Peyton Wilson wasn't going to be where he was supposed to be. So their linebacker room is awful. And they have, a rookie draft pick and a veteran with getting free agent money. I wouldn't want either of them to start next year, but I think there's a chance that both of them start next year. So that'll be interesting. I think they should address linebacker. Jalen Ramsey, they can't cut him, but they could trade him. He came here to play for Mike Tomlin. I could see him demanding a trade. I could see them giving into his demands, especially like the new defensive coordinator. I know Patrick Graham probably has appreciated him over the years, but like I said, he'll have to play safety for them. And there's still questions about how that fit is going to be. So I could see Ramsey getting traded. If not, it'll be Ramsey and Deshaun Elliott in the back end at safety because they can't play Ramsey at quarterback corner anymore. So if they get rid of Ramsey, they need another safety. If not, they'll probably run it back with Ramsey and Elliott. Joey Porter, they're going to have to extend him this year. He'll probably make a significant salary after a really good season. And like I said, Eccles will man the slot. So they need to replace, Darius Slay or James Pierre or Asante Samuel, whoever that was at cornerback. Maybe they want to try and re-sign Pierre because he wasn't that bad, but they need help at cornerback. I think they're going to get rid of Jalen Ramsey. I guess I had to put weights on it, I would say Ramsey is the most likely, then Queen, then Watt, then Hayward, as far as like how many of these defensive guys are they going to move on from now that they're not a Tomlin defense anymore. So my questions or my needs are quarterback, wide receiver, left guard, linebacker. Although if they're going to run it back with Queen and Peyton Wilson, they're not going to do anything in linebacker, although I think linebacker is a need. And then cornerback and then safety if they get rid of Ramsey. So my questions are, what do they do at quarterback? I think they should draft somebody. Do they cut Jonnu Smith? They have to. Do they let Austin walk? But then if they lose those two pass catchers, who do they add as pass catchers because they don't have enough depth anyways? Do they get ahead of left tackle because Jones will be a free agent? Or how do they address left guard? Jones will probably start in one of those two spots. And then they need a future in the other. Do they trade TJ Watt and Jalen Ramsey and cut Patrick Queen? And then do they extend Joey Porter, and how do they rebuild the secondary? Those are my 5 questions for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I'm Parker Hurley. Check out the other 20 episodes I did. We'll be on to Team 22 tomorrow, and we'll talk to you guys then.